The storm raged, but the royal guard did this incredible moment. The grandeur of Buckingham Palace stood undisturbed, its gates lined with tourists eager to witness the iconic changing of the guard ceremony. But today, something was different. The sky, once clear and blue, had turned an ominous shade of gray. Storm clouds gathered overhead, the wind beginning to howl through the streets of London. Standing at his post was Corporal James Mitchell, a seasoned British Royal Guard who had served for years with unwavering discipline. Rain began to drizzle lightly, but Mitchell remained unfazed, his stance as firm as the very palace behind him. As the ceremony progressed, the drizzle turned into a relentless downpour. Tourists hurried to find cover beneath umbrellas, their coats drawn tightly around them. Yet, Mitchell and his fellow guards remained unshaken, their red tunics darkening under the weight of the rain, their towering bearskin hats absorbing the moisture. The storm escalated quickly. Fierce winds whipped across the palace grounds, bending trees and rattling metal gates. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the drenched cobblestone streets. The crowd, now far thinner, watched in astonishment. Despite nature's fury, Mitchell and his unit did not flinch. Their rifles remained firm, their gazes locked forward. Their duty, to stand guard, was more than just ceremonial. It was a symbol of steadfastness, tradition, and honor. Then, in a moment that left onlookers breathless, a sudden gust of wind tore through the courtyard, knocking over barricades and sending debris flying. A startled child cried out as an umbrella twisted inside out and tumbled toward the guards. And still, Mitchell did not move. What was mere discomfort to others was a test of true dedication to him. The storm raged on, but the royal guard stood their ground, unwavering, unyielding, unbreakable. As the storm reached its peak, the wind roared like a beast, sending sheets of rain slamming against the palace walls. Water pooled along the courtyard, turning the pristine stone into a slick and treacherous surface. Tourists who had remained behind struggled to shield themselves from the fierce gusts, gripping their umbrellas and huddling beneath awnings. Through it all, Mitchell's mind remained still. Years of training had prepared him for moments like these, where distractions, discomfort, and the raw power of nature were mere obstacles to overcome. He tightened his grip on his rifle, feeling the cold seep through his soaked gloves, but his resolve never wavered. A particularly violent burst of wind rattled the palace gates, sending a deafening clang across the courtyard. The noise startled a nearby horse from the household cavalry, causing it to rear up in distress. The rider fought to regain control, struggling against the animal's panic. Gasps rippled through the remaining crowd as the horse's hooves threatened to strike a bystander. In that split second, Mitchell made a decision. With calculated precision, he stepped forward, breaking formation just for a moment, to grab the horse's reins. His strong, gloved hands held firm, applying just enough pressure to steady the animal. The rider, now regaining control, gave him a quick nod of appreciation before urging the horse forward. It was only a fraction of a second, an action barely noticed by many. But for those who had witnessed it, it was a revelation. Even within strict discipline, there was room for instinct, for protection, for humanity. Mitchell returned to his post immediately, his expression as unreadable as ever. The storm still raged, and he still stood, a symbol of resilience against both the elements and chaos itself. As the storm finally began to ease, the torrential rain softened into a steady drizzle. The wind, though still present, had lost its furious edge, allowing those who had sought shelter to emerge once more. The courtyard, previously alive with swirling debris and chaos, now bore the stillness of an arena after battle. Tourists who had remained to witness the storm's full force began whispering amongst themselves, their eyes drawn to the royal guards who had not wavered once. Some murmured in admiration, while others quickly checked their phones, their recorded videos already going viral. A few steps away, the rider from the household cavalry dismounted and approached Mitchell. Though guards were trained to avoid direct communication while on duty, the cavalryman gave a firm, appreciative nod before saluting. The unspoken gratitude in his gesture spoke volumes. One of the high-ranking officials from the palace, having been alerted to Mitchell's quick response with the distressed horse, observed the scene from a distance. Though formal recognition for such acts was rare, this moment would not go unnoticed. Later that evening, as Mitchell finished his shift and returned to his quarters, he found a letter placed on his bedside table. It bore the official seal of Buckingham Palace. Inside, a brief but powerful message was written. Duty and honor are measured not just by how one stands in the storm, but by how one chooses to act. Your service today has not gone unseen. On behalf of the Crown, we extend our deepest gratitude. Mitchell exhaled slowly, his disciplined exterior momentarily softening. He had not sought acknowledgement, nor had he needed it. Yet, in that quiet moment, he knew that his dedication had meant something. As he set the letter aside, he prepared for another day. Another post. Another moment where he would stand, rain or shine, as he always had. For duty. For tradition. For the unwavering commitment that defined him as a royal guard. The storm may have passed, but the impact of that day lived on. Footage of the event spread across social media, capturing the world's attention. People praised the unwavering discipline of the royal guards, with many calling Mitchell's actions an embodiment of true service. Within the palace, conversations about the balance between duty and humanity surfaced. Some senior officers saw Mitchell's quick action as an example of how modern guards should adapt, knowing that their role extended beyond just standing still. It was about safeguarding the palace, the people, and the legacy they represented. Weeks later, while standing at his post on a calmer afternoon, Mitchell noticed a small group of visitors approaching. Among them was the rider whose horse he had steadied. He carried himself formally but offered a brief nod of acknowledgement as he passed. Beside him was a young boy, likely his son, who looked up at Mitchell with admiration. "Is that the one?" the boy whispered. His father smiled. "Yes, that's him." The boy hesitated for a moment, then, with quiet reverence, he saluted. Mitchell, remaining in his stance, gave the slightest, almost imperceptible nod. The world had moved on, but some moments would never be forgotten. The resilience of a royal guard in the face of nature's wrath had become a story of inspiration, proving that strength was not just about standing still, it was about knowing when to stand, when to act, and when to serve. Months after the storm, Mitchell's story remained a quiet legend among both civilians and those within the royal guard. New recruits whispered about the day a guard had not only stood against the elements but had also acted with instinct and courage when it mattered most. Inside Buckingham Palace, discussions arose about the modernization of the guard's role. Officers acknowledged that while tradition was paramount, there was room for adaptability, moments where protocol must bend to accommodate humanity. Tourists who visited the palace often asked about Mitchell. Some left notes of gratitude at the gates, while others hoped to catch a glimpse of the guard who had faced the storm. Though Mitchell never acknowledged the attention, he carried on as he always had, silent, steadfast, and ready. One evening, as Mitchell stood in his familiar post, a young cadet, barely past training, stood beside him and whispered, "Sir, I hope one day I can serve with the same honor you did that day." Mitchell said nothing. But in the quietest of motions, he straightened his stance just slightly, a silent acknowledgement of the legacy he now carried. Some heroes don't need recognition. They simply stand, unshaken, ready for whatever comes next.